Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. On today's show is our very first returning guest. And he's because one, he's my favorite people in the world, but also because his career has had such a huge influence on me and obviously millions of other people. And, when we had him on the first time, we talked for like an hour, 10 minutes. I don't remember exactly. And we really literally, talked about like just a sliver of all the things he's done. I'm not saying who it is just yet. I'm going to tease it a little bit longer. This man on today's show, he's a regular face of comedy for years and years and years. He's appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Seinfeld, Raising Hope, My Name Is Earl, Alf, Night Court, The Golden Girls, Parker Lewis, Can't Lose, Punky Brewster, and the credits go on and on. So, of course, you've probably guessed it when I said the Golden Girl. Today's show, we're super excited to welcome back one of my favorite people, TV's Tim Stack. Tim, how are you?
Good, Saul. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
We talked once before, and when you came on my podcast previously, we talked. We went pretty deep on your show Nightstand with Dick Dietrick. Of course, it's where I kind of discovered you, or at least learned about you. I didn't discover you. That show was such a seminal show for me in high school, and like I said last time, you, David Letterman, and Mad Magazine are probably one of my three biggest sort of comedic influences. So
Wow.
it's kind of cool.
I don't know if I'm that echelon, but thank you.
Well, it's funny. It's you don't always know what an impact you have on people until they invite you twice on their little podcast. So since that time, a lot has gone on. You may not know this, but because you were so kind to me, then you're now my emergency contact in case I ever get into a car accident. So hopefully we won't have to test that. But
so I don't know if I can get to Canada to get you out of the car. So,
yeah,
but I'll try.
no problem. Hey, so like a year ago when COVID kind of became real, I locked myself in my house and I started revisiting a lot of the shows that I haven't watched in years and years. And there were shows that were meaningful. There were shows that I just remembered liking, but sort of gave a lot of things a try. And one of the shows was My Name Is Earl. And I remember watching My Name Is Earl, regularly, semi-regularly when it was live. But I don't think I recalled until watching it again, it's probably been 10 years or so. Man, that show is so edgy. And I don't think I
It's so
appreciated,
edgy.
yeah, I don't think I appreciated its edginess in real time. Like right out of the gate, that first episode when Jason Lee and Evan Suplee discover that the guy is a homosexual and they slowly back out of the room because they don't know how to deal with that. I've never seen a scene like that on television, and it's one of those genuine laugh out loud moments.
Yeah, that's a scene. Like, I look at that pilot now, and I don't know that the network today would approve that story. The idea of their lead character being so overtly homophobic. And I've talked to Greg Garcia about it, the creator of the show. We've talked about it. And his feeling is like, no, you have to do it because there are homophobic people out there. And Earl's, in writing a script, you always try to the great teachers of screenwriting will tell you, use a character's a character should use his or her handicap to sort of win the day in the end. And that's exactly what Earl does, is he gets over his own homophobia in order to cross Kenny off the list. So it's a double win for Earl because, yeah, he crosses Kenny off the list, but he gets over his own personal problem in the process. And I think it's great writing. And that's why Greg would say, no, we have to do it. But yeah, you're right. It's a crazy, funny show. And it was so, I can't tell you how fun that writer's room was on Earl. We have reunions because everybody laughed so hard in that room.
So you wore a few different hats on that show. You obviously were an actor. You wrote a couple episodes. You were a supervising producer. How did you get involved in the show to begin with?
Well, Greg and I, as an actor, that's a funny story to appear on. I'll tell that story. The getting on as a writer was really simple because Greg and I met on a show called On Our Own in '94, before Nightstand. In fact, I sold Nightstand while working on Our Own. And On Our Own was a show, it was a crazy show, really good guy. Dave Duclon was the creator and showrunner. And it was a show starring the Smollett family, which Jussie Smollett was the kid who got arrested in Chicago for
Mhm.
faking the lynching, and and it was, but it was show. But Greg Garcia, Ralph Green, and I all met on that show and became very, very good friends. And Ralph worked on Nightstand, and Greg has gone off and had a fantastic career, just a great career. And then when Earl came around, he showed me the pilot, and I was just like, at the time, there was nothing like it on television. It was a single camera comedy. There was a lot of action, and this dirtball character was the lead. And Jason Lee, who was so good. I'd seen him in Chasing Amy, and he was so good. And I said, Greg, if there are any spots for writing, I would love to work on this show. And he said, done. So I went to work on the show, and then and it was really, really funny, great. And then I think it was episode 3 or 4. We did an episode about a little girl's beauty pageant, and Joy,
Mhm.
the Jimmy Presley character, had been in this pageant as a child. And Greg came to me and he kind of took me aside and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a celebrity, kind of a B-list celebrity, to play the host." And I said, let me think. Who would be good for that? And he said, no, 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 I want you. So, so that's how it happened. And then what happened was, if you look at that episode, I'm in a tuxedo and I play the host of this beauty pageant, little girl's beauty pageant. And I had heard a Vic Damone song called Little Girl on the radio because I listened to the Sinatra station on Sirius. And I came back in the next day. I said, Greg, this could be really funny if I sang this song, because it's like this. It's like an old man singing a song about little girls. It's kind of creepy. It's borderline, creepy. And he said, that sounds great. So we did the first episode and it went great. And I sang the song. And then we started thinking like he wanted another celebrity. And what had happened during I hope I'm not talking too long. I've just co-opted
No,
your
no,
show.
you can
So,
talk for as long as you want.
so during Son of the Beach, um, Lee Majors was a guest star on the last 3 episodes, and he was great. He is great. He's a fantastic guy. And then he came on Raising Hope again, and he just has the best stories because it's Lee Majors, a TV icon. And he had worked on The Big Valley, and I'm a huge Barbara Stanwyck fan. Like, I think she's America's greatest actress. And so I'm asking him questions about Barbara Stanwyck, and he's got great stories. And so then he tells me a story about this guy named what was his name? Beck was his last. Peter Breck, who played Nick Barkley on the show on The Big Valley. And he said, and if you remember the character, he used to wear black gloves and a black scarf and black, and he was the tough guy. He was the tough Barkley. And he told me that this guy on Saturdays, back when people did their errands on Saturdays because they worked all week and they had to go to the bank and the bank was open for 3 hours in the morning, that this guy would wear his Big Valley outfit, like the boots and the spurs and the hat, and on Saturdays to go to the bank and go to the hardware store and all the things you do on Saturdays. And he would drive a convertible sports car up and down Ventura Boulevard. And people would go crazy. It was like, oh my God, it's Nick Barkley, hey. And I thought it was so funny that this guy would do that. And so then when Greg said, maybe come back, I said, here's what I want to do. Going back to the original beauty pageant thing, I said, can we play me as a drunk and obviously a borderline pedophile in this episode, but mostly like a drunk?
Obviously.
And that I became, the premise was that Tim Stack from Son of the Beach and Nightstand and Parker Lewis, all these shows, had moved to this horrible town and basically drank his fortune away living in a motel. But what I said was, can I wear my Son of the Beach outfit because of based on the guy on the Big Valley? So that's how that came to be, that TV's Tim Stack lived in this town, wore his Son of the Beach outfit around town, and he just became a semi-regular on the show. And it was really, really fun to play that part, to play me as a drunk. It was just really fun.
That's cool. So, when I was reading about Earl and doing a little bit of research for today, so I had stuff to ask you. One of the things I found really, really surprising is that My Name Is Earl had more viewers than The Office, Parks and Rec, and 30 Rock in like all of their heydays. And it surprised me because I don't think of Earl, like rewatching it, it's such a brilliant show, but I don't think of it as the same conversation. And I'm kind of curious why it hasn't lived on in the same mindset.
I'm not going to mention names, but the brilliant executives at NBC, that show came out of the gate a monster hit. Like that's why it won Emmys the first year, and Greg won an Emmy, and Jimmy Press. It came out of the gate like, oh my God, you have to see this show. And it continued that way. And then the geniuses at NBC, maybe because NBC owned the show, decided to put Earl on hiatus and move The Office in. And then they moved the time slot of Earl. It would start off as a Thursday show, and then it moved to Tuesday. They kept moving it around because this is the beginnings of, I don't mean to get too, of a business lecture, but this was really the beginnings of broadcasters also owning the product and looking at down the road profits. And because Earl was a Fox-owned show, which also owned Son of the Beach, that's why I was able to wear that outfit, NBC didn't care about it as much as they cared about The Office. So when it came down, and that's why it weirdly got canceled after 4 years, because they had moved it around so many times that the ratings got diluted and it didn't become the hot property that it once was when it first came out of the gate. But what it really speaks to is it's amazing how quickly you can lose an audience when you change a time slot or take it off for a little bit. It's crazy how that can happen just like that.
Yeah, so I've done zero research on this, but I am really curious how, now when you think of television shows, I couldn't tell you what any day anything is on or any time. Like, we no longer have appointment television. I set my PVR, I watch it whenever. It's very curious that networks don't even really promote, at least locally, they don't promote day and date anymore. It's just set your PVR, streaming now, and everything. That I'm curious how audiences build, because it used to be that you would watch the show on Thursday, you'd talk about it Friday, and everything kept sort of snowballing. And now, like, I feel, and I've talked about this 1,000 times, I feel that fandom has been ruined by spoiler culture and the fact that nobody's watching at the same time. And when you see a big milestone event on TV, like a character dying or something, you run to Twitter, you run to Facebook, and everyone's just like, OMG, did you see that? But nobody's actually talking about the thing that happened, because they're all afraid of getting told, don't spoil it, don't ruin it, whatever. And I don't feel like TV has the same conversations that it used to have, the way, like, there was nothing more fun than just sitting around. It was like book club without reading the book, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think to a degree that goes on, but part of the problem is there's so much on that, there's so much of, have you seen this show? No, what's it on? It's on, Acorn. Acorn, I don't have Acorn. This bombardment of there's just so much on that I think that there's too much to talk about and to break through. You really need to be like a breakout hit in order to break through the clutter, I think, of tracking everything via social media, which I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I
Last
can't
time we
imagine
chatted,
that's not the most important. The way they judge a show is, but in my own way, I think, and I'm doing a new show with Greg Garcia. I'm working for him again on a new show that's going to be on IMDb TV, which is owned by Amazon, but it's going to be Amazon's free service. Like they're going to run commercials in the show. I'm very excited for that. I don't mind commercials. I find commercials entertaining. Also, it's free. And I watch Hulu with commercials. I'm not bothered. Okay, I save $5 a month. It's only $5, but that enables me to budget that money for another app that I would like to get, or a podcast or whatever it is. I'm encouraged that there's going to be streaming with commercials, because I think that that's going to make entertainment more affordable.
Well, but it also commercials are, and I'm not sure that many people look at it this way, but commercials are an interesting storytelling device to actually allow for a pause in the story or a natural break.
Yes.
So to kind of get people like to breathe and stuff. So it's funny you mentioned IMDb TV, because the last time we chatted, you made a throwaway comment about people who watch the TV show Bosch. And it's funny, I've read every Bosch book, and I had never watched the show because exactly what you had just said. I couldn't find it. I couldn't do anything. I've burned through every episode of Bosch now, and it's a great show. And I read the other day that it's coming to. There's a Bosch spinoff coming to IMDb TV.
Yes, I saw that too. Yes.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, TV's Tim Stack. You play yourself on TV. Did that just sort of happen organically? You sort of touched on it, or was it always the plan? Or is that one of those things that just comes up in the writer's room? Wouldn't it be funny if kind of thing?
It was Greg. It was literally, I remember him taking me aside in the hallway, because I don't think he wanted, like, in case I was, like offended by it. And I get offended by very little. But just in case I was, I think he was being safe. Like, hey, what do you, I need a celebrity. No, I was thinking about you, which of course I found really, really funny. I remember laughing so loud. So that's how that happened. And then it sort of grew into the wearing the uniform and the drunk. And then we did this episode where it was a cops episode. I think I was one of the writers on the episode, where, I mistakenly think I'm on a Broadway stage, and I'm actually in a strip club because I'm drunk, and I think I'm on Broadway, and I'm doing a song from Oklahoma. It's one of my favorite, the Surrey with the fringe on top. It's one of my favorite things that I've done on camera, is that little bit from My Name Is Earl. And Kathy Kinney from Drew Carey's on the show and the episode. Mike O'Malley, Billy Gardell. It's a great episode. And when I say I'm one of the writers on it, trust me, the group led by Greg wrote it. My name happens to be on it.
So just to close kind of this idea of you wearing your costume, have you ever gone to the grocery store in your lifeguard outfit?
No. No. In fact, I don't even wear. I have a weird thing about that. I don't wear clothing from, like, in public. Like I have a Son of the Beach jacket that I really like, and I use it to sit outside on my terrace to read if I need a jacket. But I never wear like Son of the Beach clothing to a market, or a Son of the Beach hat, or nightstand, like a nightstand hat, or anything like that. I don't wear. I don't know. That's just my own little thing. I think I'll wear Earl because I don't even wear Earl stuff because I appeared on camera in it. So I'm just one of those people. I don't need the attention. So
See, I'm the opposite. I have shirts and jackets with my face on it. I wear it everywhere because I find that even if people don't know who I am, it gives off the impression that they shouldn't talk to me, and it tends to work. So I'm able to shop in peace, and nobody bothers me.
That's funny.
So Earl obviously wasn't the first show you were a part of, but was it different, or did it feel different because it was a big three network show?
No, it felt different because there was money. Like,
Mhm.
you know, yeah, we can shoot that. I had on Son of the Beach and Nightstand, it was always just like, staying on budget and the grind of staying on a budget. It wasn't like it was never brought up. Like you never even thought of like, oh, we can shoot that. We don't care about the money.
Mhm.
But on a big network show, it's different. It's not as different now. It's it's back to like what I experienced on Son of the Beach now. Like, oh my God, we you can't spend money like you used to. I
Mhm.
don't know whether that's because the Disneyfication of the whole industry or whatever, but the idea of going over budget these days is no, you don't do that. Maybe you do if you're on Game of Thrones, or some monster hit like that. But no, it's changed. That would be the difference, is that there was plenty of money for writers and actors, and if you wanted a guest star, you booked them, and you didn't care if it cost $20,000 for this guest star because that's what you do. And
Mhm.
times have changed.
It was interesting. You guys had a ton of really interesting guest stars on the show, and it's funny when I was rewatching the series, it was hard for me to play. I'm really bad with timelines. It was hard for me to recognize whether these people were stars at that time, or I think of them stars now, or if it was their, kind of early in their careers. But there was so many interesting people on the show. Like I'm blanking. Like Gianna Ribisi was on the show, which I
Yeah, he
think I
played
read
Bad
was a.
Ralph. He was really, really
Yeah.
funny. He was
Mm,
he was friends with Jason and Ethan prior
mhm,
to Jason used to date his sister. Jason's talked about this. So, but
mhm,
the way Jason got introduced to show business was he was dating Giovanni's sister, and she was an actress in the film Dazed and Confused. And she's the redheaded girl with the red fro,
mhm,
and she needed an adult to go with her. And I think Jason was 18, and so he tells the story of like they go to Austin to shoot this movie, and he's a skateboarder, and he's living in
mhm.
this motel, and he was like, wow, this is really cool. Maybe I can do this. And that's what got him into acting, was the intro. So he's known Giovanni for a long time. That's how we got him in. And he was so good on the show. So funny.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then
Jason Lee.
Beth Grant was his mother. That was a really funny episode where they meet Bad Ralph's mother. And
Mhm.
yeah,
They
there's
they
some
end up
great,
they end up dating and everything. Yeah.
yes.
I am. I'm. Yeah. Obviously, I don't know Jason Lee. You had or have a relation with him. He's had a really interesting career where, like, he's been really, really good in almost everything he's been in, and then either by choice or whatever, he just seemed to not work for a long time. He's been in a couple Kevin Smith things recently and stuff like that. But like Mumford was great, and even the movie, I can't remember with the name of it, Heartbreakers, with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like, he's been really good in everything he's done, and like you'd think, you kind of see, like, you wonder why he isn't Ben Affleck, unless he didn't want to be Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I think he has his own. He's a really creative guy. Like he takes really cool
Mhm.
photographs, and um, he's an artist, and I think he has his own vision of what he wants to do. He's very, it was not easy getting him. Sort of the making of the pilot hinged on getting Jason Lee and I remember Greg saying like, they gave him a very short list of actors who will make this pilot because it was so different,
Mhm.
at the time, and we'll make this pilot if you get blank. And Jason Lee was on the list, and I mean, it was like, get George Clooney, and Jason Lee was on the list, and Greg wouldn't give up, and finally he ran into Jason Lee's manager, and just convinced her, and Jason took another look at the script and said, "Okay, I don't think Jason was in a hurry to do network TV, and this came along. I'm sure they paid him. I have no idea what he made. I'm sure they paid him really, really well." And then everything fell in place after that. Another story about Earl was that when the show got made, they tested it, and it tested through the roof to the point where they couldn't believe the testing results. And then they tested it again, and the numbers kept going up. And they tested the third time, it went up. That's when they suddenly realized they had a hit on their hands, and they dumped all this money into promotion. And that's another reason why it came out of the gate like a monster hit right out of the gate. And then, as I said earlier, they moved it.
So I have some questions about the Groundlings, which you're obviously part of, but sort of just like close the door on Earl. There's a lot of chatter on the internet, maybe not recently, but at the time, about how there wasn't a satisfying conclusion to Earl, just because the show was canceled and they didn't get to finish the list. And I know there was a small little kind of Easter egg inside of Raising Hope, but has there ever been talks about maybe doing like a 4-episode Netflix special just to wind Earl down or anything like that?
Yeah, again, this is where you get into, now Disney owns the show. So because they bought 20th Century Fox. So does Disney want to do that? Well, maybe they would, because they also own Hulu, and that's a show, that could play on Hulu and all these reboots. And look, I think they could do it. It would seem to play well on Hulu, maybe on FX. You do one of these 13 episode arc mini reboots and call it a day and have the satisfying ending. You're preaching to the choir. I know Greg has something worked out in his mind. He always did. Then the show got canceled, but he always thought, this is how I'm going to end the show. I don't want to say what that is. But yeah, that could happen. It's a question of whether or not Disney, Greg, Jason Lee want to do it. But yeah, that's something that could happen. I know Greg is wonderfully focused on this new show that he's doing. So getting him to think about an Earl reunion right now would not be the time to do that.
Yeah, you've worked with Greg on 3 separate projects. Are you kind of like his good luck charm?
I think he's got a few of us that are good luck charms. I also think he likes, like me, he likes it. I like going to work. I like hearing the sound of a bell on a stage, and I just like it. And he does too. So he wants to be surrounded by people who share that enthusiasm. And and I think I add value on jokes getting in shows and ideas, and I think, but he's got a few good luck charms, and he's somebody that if something works, don't fix it. So you see a lot of the same crew people, and the DP, the director of photography on this new show, did the guest book for him, but he was the camera operator on Raising Hope, and he came in on Earl. So he likes having people he knows he can be honest with, and doesn't have to sugarcoat anything, but also wants to have a good time on the set. It's fun. It should be fun. It's fun what we're doing. We're making fun for people at home, so it should be fun.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, I'm really bad with timelines, but like about a year ago, maybe a little longer, I think it was the anniversary of the Groundlings, and one of the things that I really enjoy, like obviously I follow you all over social media. I'm a fan. You did kind of like weeks long tributes of kind of your memories of the Groundlings, and you're posting pictures of Phil Hartman and all the people, all the greats of those times. Uh, Last time we spoke, you told me this amazing story of your time on Saturday Night Live writing your after school special skit, which I still think is the funniest story I've ever heard, and have told it to many people. What are some of your favorite memories of your time at the Groundlings? And what was it like, sort of early days at the Groundlings?
Wow. Well, I stumbled into the Groundlings by by accident. Did I tell the cocaine story on
No,
your
no,
podcast?
please tell it.
So when I moved to LA, the only person I knew was I had met him, and I never like cocaine was never my thing. But I had met this guy when I was a bartender during college out in the Hamptons. I worked in a bar out there, great bar, really fun summers. And so when I moved to LA, the only person I knew was this guy who had moved out there, and he was a coke dealer. That's what he did. So he said to me, this is how I got into the Groundlings, and it involves Phil Hartman. He said to me, hey, there's a party Saturday night. Do you want to go? And I had read about the Groundlings. I was tending bar at the Troubadour, which is a famous, rock club in LA. And I had just gotten the job at the Troubadour, tending bar. And I'm reading in the LA Weekly about the Groundlings. And I was like, this sounds what I want to do. Like I knew about Second City, when SCTV was on at the time, and all the people on Saturday Night Live, and Lorraine Newman had gone to Saturday Night Live from the Groundlings. I said, I want to go see this show. So I said, I'll meet you at the party afterwards. So I go to see the show, the Groundlings, and I've said this before. It was a religious experience for me. It was, I had found God, at the Groundlings, like. And so then I go to the party afterwards, and who shows up at this party by chance was Phil Hartman. And I was just like, oh my God, I just saw your show. It's so crazy. And, and he had that voice, like, oh, thanks so much. He was such a good guy and Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing led to another. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, well, call this guy. And he happened to know Tom Maxwell's number. Call him, and I'll call him too and let him know that maybe there might be a class starting soon. And sure enough, there was a class starting like that Monday. And somehow, again, by chance, there was a spot open. And I remember at the time, all Tom Maxwell was really concerned about, he and I became very good friends, was if I brought a check or cash. Because at the time, the Groundlings was not the successful Groundlings that we know. So that's how I got involved in the Groundlings. But at the time, that show that night, it was Phil doing Chick Hazard. It was Paul Reubens doing Pee Wee. Little side note, Paul Reubens' assistant, I can't remember her name. She's been with him for years. Got a bunch of Groundlings lined up for their vaccinations. She happened to find
All
this
right.
website. So thank you, Paul Reubens, on me getting a vaccination. But Edie McClurg from Ferris Bueller was in and then a bunch of Cassandra Peterson, who became Elvira. It was just an amazing show that night. And then to be a part of it was, to then a year later, I started taking class, and I got in a year later into the Groundlings and had a really, really good run there, at the Groundlings. Another Phil Hartman story that I think is funny, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, was by chance, again, the band The Stray Cats was
Mm-hmm.
playing up at the parking lot of the old Tower Records on Sunset, which is sort of an iconic store there. And they were doing a free concert. And I walked up with my buddy, Jeff Sanders, who I went to high school with, and Hartman happened to be there. I think with his second wife, Lisa, who loved all that rockabilly stuff. And we started talking. We like, let's try to do something like this. And then he and I went on to do this sketch called the Everbilly Brothers, where you'd improvise a rockabilly song. It was a really good show opener and kind of popular. anyway, that was a funny story I just thought of about the Groundlings. There are so many, and Paul Reubens. I was only in the company for a short time with him because he started the Pee Wee show at the Groundlings as a midnight show. That's where it really took off, and it was really fun for me, like coming from Philadelphia and kind of a very plain white Protestant background, Catholic, but that all of a sudden I got in the Groundlings. But then when Paul came in, he brought this artist named Gary Panter as the scene designer, and all these, like at the time, punk was really like, whoa, the LA punk scene was just burgeoning, and all these artists were showing up, and it was really fun for me as a voyeur to, like, I finished the Groundlings show, and then all of a sudden these people with mohawks and like crazy people who lived like downtown, nobody lived downtown, were showing up at the Groundlings. That was really fun. And then Paul obviously went on to have unbelievable success with Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet Paul probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was friendly with the woman that sort of ran his early social media presence and sort of got the real groundswell of like Pee Wee on Broadway and all that stuff. So I spent a couple hours with him. Really, really wonderful, thoughtful guy, and so funny and so just nice to be around. Really nice
That's
guy.
the thing that people also, I mean, Pee Wee was so successful, and
Yeah.
it was clearly his main character. He did
Hmm.
a bunch of really, really funny other characters.
Cheech and Chong,
At the Groundlings,
Buffy.
that
At the Groundlings.
he did this what would now be super racist, this Native American lounge singer named Chief J Longtoe, and he would do this dance on his toes that was really funny, and he would sing the song, soon it's gonna rain, I can feel it, soon it's a rain chant. Like, you'd never be able to do that today. And he did another character, this awful person named Moses Feldman, and who was a cartoonist who had this, his character was this young rabbinical student who was the cartoon with this young rabbinical student. I can't remember the character's name, but the character that Paul did was so funny. It was just wow. And people don't even know about Paul, his other characters. I'd love to see a night of Paul where he does his other characters, not Pee Wee. It would be so fun.
We've talked a couple times where the phrase "you couldn't do that today" has come up. Do you think like comedy should get a pass on some things? Like I read yesterday that Pepe Le Pew, the Warner Brothers skunk character, has been, quote, canceled because it's like he's a little rapey and too forward. One, it's a cartoon character, which boggles my mind. And two, it's like the least relevant character in their whole roster. So I think it's a pretty safe thing for them to say, we're not going to do this anymore. But it seems like we've gone
who can we get rid of to get on the cancel board? Yeah, on the cancel train. That's funny.
It just seems like we've gone a little too far. Like I don't think we should ever be disrespectful, and we shouldn't be, we shouldn't go purposely try to hurt people's feelings. But comedians and comedy is supposed to be the mirror of society that we hold up to sort of, like it's the court jester, the person who's kind of looking at it through a different lens. And I've read, listen to podcasts and read all these articles where, comedians won't work college campuses anymore because it's just not worth it and stuff like that. And it's such a weird time for comedy, and like COVID aside, but it's a weird time for comedy right now because the stuff, like I tell people all the time, the stuff that makes me laugh is probably all the stuff that would get people in trouble right now. And it's such a strange time for comedy.
Yeah, I know what to say about that. I mean, I do think Nightstand, like when I look at shows that could possibly come back, like Nightstand, Sun on the Beach. I don't know, man. Wow. Part of our mission on that show was to push the envelope as much as you can.
Mhm.
Literally, that was a directive. Like, go for it, guys. That's part of what we want, is we want the controversy. So we did it. We would really find envelope pushing jokes to do. Yeah, I mean, that
But it was, but both shows
Mel
were.
Brooks talks about it all the time now. It's just like, I don't know that Mel Brooks could get into show business now. The
Yeah.
producers of Hitler on Broadway, and
Did,
that's such a classic movie, and I don't know that could be made today.
Blazing Saddles, one of the most
Yes.
brilliant movies of all time, now plays with a disclaimer, which like it kind of hurts my heart. The first like minute of the movie, they literally put a super up on the screen that says, please, I'm paraphrasing, but the idea is, please understand that this was made at a time where this was acceptable and this may not be acceptable now. And if you don't feel that, you'd be able to understand these jokes, please don't watch the movie. And it just seems so, just, I don't know, like you're taking some of the greatest art, comedic art of all time, and telling people, like, you're almost saying, hey, get ready, you're going to be offended. So, brace yourself.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I do know, at one time I was very good friends. A writer named Norman Steinberg, who was one of the
Hmm.
writers on Blazing Saddles. And I mean, I would ask him questions about that writer's process all the time. And he said, they would bring in Richard Pryor, and they would just turn him loose on those jokes that, the black jokes, the N-word and all that stuff that's in Blazing Saddles. That's all coming from Richard Pryor.
Hmm.
He would walk around the room, and they'd say, what about this? And he'd do bits, and they would write it down, and that's what would get in the script.
Hmm. That's
But I
great. Hey,
don't think
back to
that
the
would
ground.
fly. I don't think that would fly today.
So back to the Groundlings. What were some of your greatest memories of your time, even just like before you were involved watching? Like, what was that moment in time like for comedy? Like, you think of all these legendary characters that came out around, that experience. Like, what was it like before, just to watch? Like, did you realize how important that moment was at the time?
Uh, you know, I guess I did. I met my wife at the Groundlings. That's another good thing. We had
Hmm.
kids because of the Groundlings. Um,
There you go.
uh, you know, I yes, I knew at the time because I sort of made the Groundlings my life.
Mhm.
And at one time I would come home, like I'd lose sleep at night. Like if I was in an improv that didn't go that well, I was like, why didn't I say this, or why didn't I do this, or those kinds of choices. It was very important to me at the time. So I may not have shown it like when I went back, but you know, trust me, I would, on a show night in my own neuroses, I might not get sleep till 5 in the morning because I'm up thinking about what I should have said in this moment. That's a
Mhm.
common trait among people who work in improv comedy. So
Mhm.
improvisers are not good sleepers. I think that's a safe statement to make. Um, yeah, at the time I knew it was important. I also knew that it was a gateway to Saturday Night Live.
Mhm.
That was really important to me, and obviously, in my time, John Lovitz and then Phil, came out of the Groundlings and Doctor, and then after that, now it's just like, gee, I mean, I think the Groundlings is their first stop to find new people for that show, which is great. It's wonderful. So yeah, I knew it was important at the time, and it was sort of my showcase. And casting directors would come to the Groundlings, and I'd get appointments, and it
Mhm.
wasn't quite the big deal that it is now. Like if you're in the Groundlings now, I mean, it only took me a year to get in the Groundlings. I think it takes people like 4 years to get in now. It's,
Mhm.
it's not easy. Now, if you're in the Groundlings, it's like, whoa, you're in the Groundlings? That's like a
Mhm.
big deal. I mean, it was a big deal at the time, but it wasn't like it is now.
Yeah. All right. So when they call you to award you with the Mark Twain Award for comedy, um, and they ask you what is the one one thing in your career you're most proud of that they're going to grab that still for the thing? Like what you've done so many things, so many little appearances, big appearances, writing, all sorts of things. What is sort of the thing that you look back and you're most proud of?
There's so many things. I did a character at the Groundlings, this Frank Sinatra impersonator named Guy Simone, that was sort of that was the first like big thing I did on my own. And we did a spin-off play at the Groundlings, and then I got a Cinemax special out of it, and a CBS pilot that never, that never got shot, but I got a script out of it. And so that was sort of the first time, like, oh my God, like I created something that it's having a little bit of success to it. I guess I attribute the Groundlings to then, even though Nightstand with Dick Dietrick was a creation by Paula Beta, Peter Kaiko, and me, when I look back at a moment in my career where, like, I literally cried when I got Alone, is when they said Nightstand was going to be on the air. Because when I started thinking as a child, like, I would go to church as a child and I would look up at the altar and I'd say, we could do a show in here. Like, this is a cool stage. And that's, so that moment at Las Vegas at the NAFI convention, when Larry Little, who ran Big Ticket Television, came to me and said, okay, we're on the air. It was just like, and this would have been 1995. That's 15 years of really, really hard work to get that moment of being, okay, you're on the air. 'Cause I came to Hollywood like, my dream was to have my own TV show. And so that was it. So if I look back at a particular moment, I'm going to say it's at a convention center in Las Vegas when they say, okay, you're on the air.
So, we talked a lot about Nightstand. It was such an important show for me. I know that you have absolutely no control over, whether it gets, added to a streaming system or not. So I won't bother you with that. But is it, I know in your Twitter feed, people ask you all the time. I've seen people still begging, Paramount Plus now owns the rights or CBS and all these things.
That's the logical place for it to air.
Yeah, but how do you feel as like the creator of the show to see, it's got to be 20 or more years now, and there's still fan sites, there's still people sort of cheerleading for this thing. Like it may not have been as big as Friends or whatever, but man, there are people who love something you created and they're so passionate about it that they're still sort of screaming into the darkness that we want more. Like what is that like?
That's really fun. I can't, it's like, it's really, really fun. And I always try to answer those people on Twitter. And Twitter's the only social media I do. My kids want me to do Instagram. I probably should, but I'd rather watch a baseball game. But one of the guys who was a co-creator on Son of the Beach, who was a writer on Nightstand, Dave Morgeson, he's very big in Facebook. Like he's very in sync with Facebook. And he'll send me things privately, like, because he'll post something from Nightstand and the reaction to it is crazy. I think it's one of those shows that people it wasn't, it got such little publicity and so many people stumbled on it, and they thought, oh, this is another talk show, and then they watch it and be like, what the hell is this? What is this? And then so I think for a lot of people that moment of finding that show was different than like, oh, they drive by a billboard and they see like, oh, what's it? They discovered it on their own doing, that they weren't told about it. So I think it means more to them.
It is one of those shows that, every show claims to have viralness or whatever, but I show people that show all the time because it makes me laugh, and the premises were so brilliant, and it is pseudo timeless because while when it came out, obviously those daytime talk shows were like so prevalent with Sally Jesse Raphael and Jerry Springer and all those things, but they haven't gone away. Like the premise of the daytime talk show hasn't vanished in 30 years. They're not as, KKK fighting, on stage the way they once were. But the the show I always show people because it's on YouTube. It's easy to find. Is One Night Stand. Reuniting people who had one night stand, and it's the two like 70-year-old people. So it's like this premise that has maybe been done before, and then sort of it takes a sharp left turn and stuff. So there's so many brilliant things about that show, and the minute people see it, everyone just sort of connects to it right away, and they either find it funny or not funny, but nobody doesn't see the genius in it.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Again,
Mhm.
it was Paula Beta and Peter Kaiko I had done the Guy DeSimone character for them for this industrial, this was in the early days of Comcast. Comcast was just a little Philadelphia company, and they had this deal, the Disney Channel, they were producing shows for Comcast through the Disney Channel, or they were promos or something. And they asked me to do Guy DeSimone for this award show for within Comcast. I said, sure. And then, so they came to the Groundlings. And I used to do Phil Donahue at the Groundlings and with Lynn Stewart, and she was Dr. Ruth. And that's what, out of that is what came Nightstand. And then we book a lot of Groundlings on Nightstand all the time, which was fun for me again. So
I could talk to you for hours. I want to be, respectful of your time. So 2 more questions, then I'll give you your day back.
Yeah,
Like I said,
I might need to change my earbuds. So okay.
Well,
No
we'll be
worries.
real quick. Last time you mentioned Bosch. What's another show that I should stumble upon that you like so I can watch and discover something new?
Oh, I just watched this show called Giri Haji on
I
Netflix.
don't know.
Fantastic. Is it two seasons or 1 season of 8 episodes? I can't remember. It's really good. It's set in Japan and England. It's a crime show, but it's really different. It's got the Asian feel to it, like Parasite. It's really good. I highly recommend Giri Haji.
Oh, yeah, I'll check that out. So last thing, less of a question, more of a comment. If I don't even know if you know what I do for a living, but I do marketing stunts and big sort of spectacle things. If a lot of what I do is kind of like ask for forgiveness before permission and stuff. If you ever want to do a crazy Nightstand revival where we just guerrilla style take over some billboards, or we put a giant Tim Stack somewhere, we can arrange that. I think it'd be funny. Or we do some guerrilla projections of Dick Dietrick all over Los Angeles, so people are just stumbling upon the shows on walls. That we could do some fun stuff together.
That's funny, as long as CBS can't trace it back to us.
Yeah, they wouldn't trace it back to you, and I'll just edit it out of the show.
That's funny.
Yeah. Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Saul. Always fun. Always fun.
I appreciate every minute of your time that you give me. People follow you on Twitter. TV's Tim Stack. You're always funny. You're always great. You're always responsive. So you're one of those people that are really one of the good ones out there. So I appreciate it, and I thank you for always being good to me.
Thank you, Saul. I'll talk to you in a year, maybe, if not sooner.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
See ya.